In this video, we're going to be looking at some jazz piano chord progressions. Hey, it's Paul Tobey from Jazzmentl.com. Thanks for joining me for another one of my tutorials. In this video, we're focused on the tune Blame It on My Youth, a great jazz ballad. Sometimes when you hear chord progressions, it's not always easy for the ear to pick them out. It sounds pleasing, but you're not quite sure what's happening. So I've written out an entire arrangement for jazz piano for the tune Blame It on My Youth. So some of the chord progressions that we're going to be looking at in this video are alternate 2-5-1 progressions. In other words, don't play a straight 2-5-1, do things like this. Or a different alternate 2-5-1 like this. And then interim chord progressions, chords that fit between a sequence like this one. That's one of my favorites. We'll get there in just a few minutes. We're going to move over to the computer and start looking at these chord progressions a little bit later on. I'll play the entire version for you back at the grand piano, and then I'll post a link to the sheet music. All right, let's get down to business with this standard called Blame It on My Youth. This is something that you really want to learn because it's just a great tune and it really lends itself to some nice reharmonization. Now, when it comes to playing solo piano for jazz, the goal is not to be flowery with big arpeggios like a cocktail pianist. The goal with jazz piano is to be more subtle, but also rich chord changes and great progressions using inner voices, leading tones, line cliches, big chords, little chords, combinations of different things so that your playing just sounds amazing to the ear. Most people can't discern the difference between a nice rich chord and a cocktail pianist chord, but what they can hear without even knowing what it is chord progression. How chords move from one to the other, and that's the whole point of this particular tutorial, is to kind of lead you down that path of learning great chord progression. So if you take a look at the first line, we're starting on the E flat 6th chord here and moving our way through this chord progression down to the end of the second line. So let me play a little bit of this for you and hear how it sounds. So why is something like that going to sound pleasing to the ear? Like I said, it's a combination of chords, but also chord movement, inner voices. So let's take a look at why this is. Now, the first chord is pretty simple. You've got an E flat 6 chord, which is really an E flat 7 in my case. So what I'm doing is I'm just putting a 5th down in the bass, and then the 7th and 3rd. 7th first, and then the 3rd. And then just rolling the left-hand bass. Keep the movement of the rhythm going forward. And again, simple chord here. Now we're starting to get into some chord voicings that sound great. Specifically, this is the one I'm talking about here. Now, why that sounds great is you've got a 9th in the bass. Hopefully you can reach that. And then 4ths in the right hand. So it's a perfect 4th, and then from there to there is a perfect 4th. Now, if you just played that like a straight G minor 7th chord, it would sound like this versus this. It starts to have quite a bit more dissonance because of that modern sound and the force. So then G minor 11th. Now, interestingly enough, all we're doing on this chord is playing the 3rd and the root. Why? Because as we go from thin voicings to thick, that's where the thick ones sound great. If they're all thick, it doesn't have the contrast that you're looking for. So from the G minor 7th, you hear that? It's just going from a simple 6th to this, which is a tritone substitution. So this is really just the same chord. This could be a C7 chord, which it is, it's just over F sharp. If it's over C, it's a C7 sharp 9 sharp 5 chord. And that's nice. You get that bass moving down in the half steps from here to here. Doesn't that sound nice? And now we have a line cliche. Of course, that James Bond line cliche that we love so much, moving from the sharp 5 here to the 6th back to the sharp 5. Now you can play all of those chords, but I've tied the lower two notes, the F and the A flat, together. And what I'd like to point out about this is you don't always have to play the full chord when it appears. What you can do is play a thin chord and then fill it in. Like that. And then C7 flat 9. This is a rootless voicing, this one right here. Right in the word rootless, because there's no root on it. So if you play it without the root, the chord looks like a B flat diminished over E chord, but if you put it over C, it's a C7 flat 9 chord. So you don't always have to play the root even though you're playing solo piano. Now that is pretty simple voicings, but you're moving down the scale. So from B flat, A flat to G, and just putting simple chords over top. There's that G minor 7th chord we had earlier, or G minor 11th. And then what we're gonna do right here, I think this is a great focus for how to play good chord progressions. What we have here is inner voices. So you've got the tritone in the left, which is C7. Put it over C, right? It's a rootless voicing. But you've got force, right? So this is a tritone and then you've got force. That's a perfect fourth and then that's a perfect fourth. So you've got this modern sound. And then this chord. So what we could have done here is we could have played a 2-5, right? So this could have been F minor 7th to B flat 7 to E flat. But instead, what we're doing, let me just erase some of this here. What we're doing instead is playing C to B flat. So this is up a whole tone from B flat and then going to the E flat sus chord. So C to B flat. And this is just a lovely chord on B flat 7. You've got B flat 7 with a flat 9 sharp 11. So let's play it as if it were F minor 7, so it's simple 2-5. It sounds okay, but not as nice as this. It's a modern sound. Now again, most untrained ears wouldn't be able to discern the difference between a straight 2-5 and this particular one. But you're not playing for regular people, you're playing for jazz people, people who understand good chord progression, especially other pianists. Okay, let's erase all of this and then move down to the next line. So this is our first time ending. It's really an A-B-A-C tune. So in the B section here, it's a little bit different than the C section coming later. So we're going to go back to the top at this ending here. It goes back to the top. And then when it gets to this first time ending, it'll skip over to the second time ending, which is below. So let's deal with the first time ending first. Let's hear how it sounds. So typical amongst a lot of ballads is when you're playing in E flat, to get to A flat in the bridge, it's basically the fourth of the tune. That's pretty common in a lot of ballads. So we're changing the key momentarily to A flat. Let me play that right. So this is a real lesson in moving inner voices. This is what I was talking about a little earlier when you're just not playing chords when the chords appear. For example, when A flat appears, play an A flat chord, and then B flat chord, and then an A flat chord. We're not doing that. What we're doing is we're staggering the chords a little bit. We're sometimes doing this, where you're arpeggiating the chord in the left hand, but then what you're doing is you're playing alternate notes. Play that one, then this one, then this one, then this one, then this one. So you're kind of going back and forth between the two hands. And it sounds great when you do that. What a great sound. So there's that inner movement that I think you should be using often. You've got F here to E flat and then D to D flat. So from the F, it's the fourth of the chord to the third of the chord, so it's resolving. And then this is resolving from the D to the D flat. So this is a C7 flat 9 chord. You don't have to play a lot of notes for it to sound rich. Then F minor. Then we've got some grace notes. Now that is something you should really focus on. So again, we could have done a 2-5, could have done F minor 7th to B flat 7 to E flat, but instead, we're just going to change the chords up a bit. We're going to go to G7, which is really the third of the key of E flat. And then we're going to approach the E flat by a half step above using an E major 7th chord. So lovely G7, sharp 9, sharp 5 chord, and then half step above E flat. And then, so one of the inner voices that you're able to use is that B natural, which is the sharp 5 of the chord. Now you could have just gone to E flat without that, and it would sound like this. Nice, but it sounds better like this. Keep going. There's that staggered chord again. You're playing the outside part, then the inside. Helps with rhythm. Staggered chord. And then F minor 11th. So we've got some inner voices happening there. C minor 9, staggered chord, and then like an F13 sus chord. Let's change that from F minor 11. Right, you've got this note G moving to F sharp. Right, just keeping inner voices moving. So this is really B flat, sus to B flat, 7 flat 9. I'll make that correction in the sheet music that I'm going to give you a link to in a moment. So just a 2-5. Lovely sound. And then we're back to the top. And let's scroll down to the second time ending. So in the first time ending, we did this. In this time, we're doing this. It's another inner voice movement where you're going from this F sharp here to the G at the top of the chord there. So a C7 sus. And the bass movement is from the F to the E, which is from the 4th to the 3rd of the chord. Lovely sound. And then just play some chords on these. Like the melody is. And then this is one of my favorites in this whole piece. Listen to all that inner voice movement. So you've got half step above D flat 7. So this is a half step above, just a tritone substitution for an A flat 7 chord, which would lead to D flat. But it's really just an E triad over a D and F sharp. And then just go down a half step. And then inner voice movement. So you're going from E flat to D flat in that inner voice. Nothing too heroic in any of that section, except you're ascending the bass line. F to G to A flat to B flat, and then this is the dominant 7th of 1. So just moving up the scale, right? Love that chord there on the B flat 7 sharp 9 chord, right? Okay, so lots of interesting things happening there. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to the grand piano and play a solo version of this, maybe a chorus of solo, just to see what we can do with it. And then I'm going to post a link to this sheet music arrangement that you can download. It is something that I arranged myself, and these chord changes are, I think, quite unique and very nice sounding. So if you want to use it as a guide to play chord progressions in other jazz standards, then it would be a great guide for you to use. Let's go to the grand piano and see how it sounds. know, it's funny, when I got into the solo section, I wasn't exactly sure where it was going to go, whether I was going to step into time or whether I was going to keep it rubato. Turns out I kept it rubato. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to post a link to the sheet music that I've created for Blame It On My Youth. I'm going to post that link up here in the corner. And try to remember that every piece of sheet music that you download is an investment in your own piano ability, and it really helps the channel. So thank you for doing that. And if you're looking for a different take on Blame It On My Youth, try this next video. It's a tutorial on how to play it with a jazz piano trio.